My daughter called me pathetic and didn't invite me to her wedding. 3 months later, her husband left her, and she called me with nowhere to live. I'm 55 years old, and I need to tell you about the worst day of my life. Actually, scratch that. The worst week, worst month, maybe worst year. This whole thing has been a nightmare I still can't fully process. I work as a nurse at County General Hospital, have been there for over 30 years now, and for 28 of those years, my daughter has been my entire world. My reason for existing. My everything. When her father walked out on us, she was only 3 at the time, I made myself a promise that she'd never feel abandoned. Never feel like she wasn't enough. I would be both parents. Work however many jobs it took, sacrifice whatever needed sacrificing. And I kept that promise. God, did I keep it. Double shifts became my normal. I'd work from 7 in the morning until midnight, sleep 4 hours, then do it again. Weekends I took private caretaker jobs, sitting with elderly patients while their families went on vacation or out to dinner. Every dollar went to her. She had better clothes than I ever wore, ate better food, got everything she wanted while I made do with nothing. I paid her college tuition, still paying off the loans. Actually, 4 more years to go on those. My back is destroyed from decades of lifting patients. My feet are covered in calluses and bunions. I look 10 years older than I am, but I told myself it was worth it because she was happy and thriving, and that's what mattered. We were close. At least I thought we were. We talked every single day, sometimes multiple times. I knew all her friends, heard about her job drama, knew every detail of her life. When she started dating this guy 2 years ago, I had bad feelings about him immediately. He was cold toward me, barely looked at me when we spoke, gave one-word answers like I was inconvenient. But she seemed happy with him, so I kept my mouth shut. Her happiness always came first. 8 months ago, she told me they were getting engaged. I was thrilled. Started saving money immediately. Not easy on a nurse's salary with all my debt. I picked up extra shifts until my supervisor literally begged me to take a day off. Sold jewelry my mother left me, including a gold bracelet and pearl earrings that had been in our family for generations. Took out a small loan against my pension, even though my financial advisor said it was a terrible idea. Didn't care. This was my daughter's wedding. I scraped together $8,000. Took me a year of killing myself to save that much. I gave it to her 6 months ago in an envelope, told her to plan whatever wedding would make her happiest. She cried when I gave it to her, hugged me and said I was the best mother in the world. That moment felt like everything had been worth it. After that, I kept asking about wedding plans. What venue? What date? What colors? I wanted to help, wanted to be involved, but she'd get vague. Still figuring it out, Mom. It's complicated with his family's schedule. I'll let you know soon. I didn't push. I never pushed her about anything because I never wanted to be a burden. Last Saturday, I was home after a brutal Friday night shift. 16 hours on my feet, 3 emergency admissions. Just wanted to sleep. My phone buzzed. My sister. The message said, "Sit down before you open these." My stomach dropped. I sat on my bed, hands shaking, opened the attachments. Photos. Dozens of them. A wedding. My daughter's wedding. Had happened the day before while I was at work. Small venue with fairy lights and modest decorations. My daughter in a white dress, beaming. Her husband looking smug in a rented suit. His family and friends surrounding them. Not a single person from her side. No family. No childhood friends. No one who'd known her before him. I scrolled through every photo like I was trapped in a nightmare. Recognized the venue. A place downtown that probably cost $2,000. My $2,000. She'd gotten married without telling me, without inviting me. Found out the same way strangers did, through social media posts after the fact. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. $8,000. A year of my life. Selling my mother's jewelry. A loan I'd be paying off for years. All so my daughter could have a beautiful wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. I wasn't even worth a phone call telling me it was happening. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Just sat at my kitchen table staring at those photos on my phone until my eyes burned and my back ached from sitting in one position for hours. Called her 15 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Texted her too. Messages that probably sounded increasingly desperate and unhinged. Why wasn't I invited? How could you do this? I gave you $8,000. Please just talk to me. All delivered but never read, or read and ignored, which somehow felt worse. My sister came over Sunday morning without calling first. took one look at me and started making coffee I couldn't drink and toast I couldn't eat. She was furious on my behalf, listing all the ways this was unforgivable, but I barely heard her. I was somewhere else entirely, trying to understand how the person I'd sacrificed everything for could do something this cruel. Sunday afternoon, my phone finally rang. Her. I answered so fast I almost dropped it. "Mom, I know you're upset, but you need to calm down." That's how she started. Not with an apology or explanation, with a command to manage my emotions for her convenience. "You're blowing up my phone, and it's honestly really embarrassing." I couldn't speak for a second. Embarrassing? I was embarrassing her? "Why wasn't I invited to your wedding?" She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It wasn't personal. We wanted to keep it small and intimate, just immediate family and close friends." "I'm your mother. I am your immediate family." "I know, but it's complicated. He has a big family and we couldn't invite everyone, so we decided to just keep it to people who are part of our daily lives now. I gave you $8,000 for this wedding, and we really appreciate that. The money helped a lot with everything." She said it so casually, like it was just a transaction. Like I was a distant relative who'd sent a check, not her mother who'd destroyed herself to save that money. "So you took my money and didn't invite me because I'm not part of your daily life anymore?" "Mom, don't twist this around. You're making everything about you when this was supposed to be about me and him starting our life together." "Then why did you take my money?" My voice was shaking now, anger mixing with the hurt. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, "Mom, I need to be honest with you. He didn't want you there, okay? I'm sorry, but that's the truth." The words felt like physical blows. "What do you mean he didn't want me there? His family is different from us. They have money. They're sophisticated, cultured. He was worried you'd feel out of place, that you'd be uncomfortable. So this was about protecting my feelings?" Even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. "Not exactly." Another pause. "He thinks you're kind of pathetic, Mom." "I'm sorry, but he said you work too much. That you don't have your own life. That you're too dependent on me emotionally. He didn't want that energy at our wedding." Pathetic. The word hit me like a slap. My daughter's husband, this man I'd never liked, who'd barely spoken to me in 2 years, thought I was pathetic. And my daughter had agreed with him enough to exclude me from her wedding. "And what do you think?" My voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you think I'm pathetic?" Too long of a pause. Way too long. "I think maybe he has a point. You do make your whole life about me, and it's a lot of pressure. Always sacrificing everything, always making me work so hard. Maybe if you had your own life, things would be healthier between us." I felt something break inside me. Not just my heart, something deeper. The illusion that my sacrifices meant something to her. The belief that love and effort created bonds. All of it shattered in that moment. "I need to go," I said. "Mom, don't be mad. I'm just being honest. I gave you $8,000. I sold my mother's jewelry. I worked double shifts until I could barely stand. All of that for your wedding. And you excluded me because your husband thinks I'm pathetic and you agree with him. That's not fair. What's not fair is finding out about my daughter's wedding through social media. What's not fair is being called pathetic by someone who's never worked a double shift in his life." My voice was getting louder, colder. "You know what? Call me when you figure out how to be a decent person." I hung up. She tried calling back immediately, but I didn't answer. Just sat there staring at my phone, waiting for the guilt to come. For that maternal instinct to kick in and make me call her back and apologize. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something new. Something I hadn't felt in decades. Anger. Pure, clean, liberating anger. Monday morning, I went to work on autopilot. Got through my shift in a fog while my coworkers kept asking if I was okay. I said I was fine, which was an obvious lie since I looked like I'd been hit by a truck. During lunch, I sat in my car and started thinking clearly for the first time since Saturday. Started thinking about money. The $8,000 wasn't everything. I had more saved up. Another $3,000 in cash, literally in a shoebox in my closet, that I'd been planning to give them as a wedding gift. Money I'd saved by working extra shifts and eating instant noodles for dinner. Money that was supposed to help them start their new life together. And then there was the apartment. 2 months ago, they'd asked me to co-sign their lease because neither of them had good enough credit. The place was $850 a month in a nice neighborhood they absolutely couldn't afford on their own. But I'd said yes immediately, filled out all the paperwork, sent in my financial information, basically guaranteed their housing for a year. Sitting in my car, something clicked in my brain. A cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. They'd used me. Took my money, took my credit, planned to keep taking while thinking I was pathetic and embarrassing, while agreeing I wasn't good enough to be seen at their wedding. I pulled out my phone and called the property management company. "Hi, I'm calling about the lease application for Unit 212. I'm one of the co-signers and I need to withdraw my application." "Oh," the woman sounded surprised. "Are you sure? Because if you withdraw, the applicants will need another qualified co-signer or they won't meet our requirements." "I'm sure. I want to be removed from the application immediately." "Okay. I can process that. The applicants will be notified within 24 hours that they need alternative guarantor information." When I hung up, I waited for guilt to hit me, for that voice in my head that always told me to fix things for her, to make everything better. It didn't come. Instead, I felt satisfied. Cold and satisfied that I'd finally done something for myself. After work, I stopped at my bank with the shoebox from my closet. $3,000 in cash. Walked up to the counter and deposited it all into my savings account. My account. Not theirs. Mine. Next, I went home and gathered all the wedding gifts I'd been buying for months. Kitchen stuff mostly. Nice dishes, fancy towels, a coffee maker she'd mentioned wanting, some small appliances, probably another $1,000 worth of items, all carefully chosen and boxed up in my spare room. Loaded everything into my car and drove to a women's shelter across town. A woman answered the door and her face lit up when she saw all the boxes. "These are donations," I said. "Kitchen items. All new." "Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. We have families moving into transitional housing all the time who need exactly this kind of thing. Thank you so much." We carried everything inside together. She kept thanking me, kept telling me how much this would help people. When she hugged me before I left, this complete stranger hugged me and called me an angel. I got back in my car and cried for 20 minutes. That night, I made myself a simple dinner and sat at my kitchen table eating alone. My spare room looked empty without all those carefully chosen gifts, but that emptiness felt right somehow. Like I'd cleared space for something new. For the first time in decades, I'd done something generous that had nothing to do with my daughter. I'd given to people who actually needed help instead of funding a lifestyle for someone who thought I was pathetic. My sister called that evening. "How are you holding up?" I withdrew as co-signer on their apartment lease. Silence. Then, "Good. What else?" Donated all the wedding gifts I bought. Deposited the cash I'd saved for them into my own account. "Good," she said again, fiercer this time. What did she say? She doesn't know yet. The property management company won't notify them until tomorrow. "She's going to call you," my sister warned. "Probably." I paused. "I don't think I'm going to answer." My sister was quiet for a moment. "I'm proud of you. I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. She needs to learn that actions have consequences." After we hung up, I sat in my green living room. I'd painted it green years ago, but she'd complained it was too dark. So I'd almost repainted it beige for her, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 28 years and finally exhaled. They showed up at my door Wednesday evening, 5 days after the wedding, both of them looking absolutely furious. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. I just stood there in the doorway, waiting. "What the hell did you do?" He didn't even say hello, just immediate aggression, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "You'll need to be more specific," I said calmly. "The apartment?" my daughter said. She looked like she'd been crying. "The property management company said you withdrew as our co-signer. We're supposed to move in next week and now they're saying we don't qualify without you." "I know." "You know?" He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. "You're sabotaging us because you're mad about the wedding? That's insane. That's actually psychotic." I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Younger than my daughter by 2 years, never held a job for more than 6 months, wearing a watch that cost more than his monthly income. Where did he get the money for that? Oh, right. My $8,000. "I'm not sabotaging anything, I'm just not helping anymore." "We need that apartment," my daughter said. "We're staying with his parents right now and it's awful. We can't keep living there." "That sounds difficult. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You promised you'd help us." Her voice was getting shrill now. That was before. Before what? But she knew. They both knew. Before I gave you $8,000 for a wedding I wasn't invited to. Before your husband decided I was too pathetic to be seen in public. Before you agreed with him. He flinched. So she'd told him what she'd said to me. Good. That's not what I meant, she started. That's exactly what you meant. I looked at him again. You think I'm not sophisticated enough for your family? You think I'm awkward and pathetic? Fine. Then you certainly don't need my money or my credit score. This is different, he said. This is our housing. You're being petty. Petty? I tasted the word. I worked double shifts for 28 years. I destroyed my body. I sold my mother's jewelry. I took out a loan I'm still paying off. I gave you $8,000, and the only thing I asked for in return was to be included in one day. One single day. And you couldn't even do that. My daughter was full-on sobbing now. Mom, please, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Please don't punish us like this. I'm not punishing you. I'm done sacrificing myself for people who think I'm an embarrassment. There's a difference. We'll pay you back, he said suddenly. The $8,000. We'll pay you back and then you can co-sign the lease. I actually laughed. With what money? Neither of you can hold down a decent job. You're living with his parents because you can't afford anything on your own. You think I believe you'll pay me back? You're a cold bitch, you know that, he said. Get off my property. Mom, get off my property. I started to close the door. He tried to push it open, but I'd already turned the deadbolt. They stood outside for another 10 minutes, him yelling threats through the door, her crying and begging. He said I'd regret this. She said I was ruining her life. Eventually they left. I sat on my couch and waited for the guilt to overwhelm me, for that maternal instinct to kick in and make me run after them, apologize, fix everything like I always did. It didn't happen. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. My phone started ringing almost immediately, my daughter calling over and over. I didn't answer. Then texts started coming. How could you do this to us? You're supposed to be my mother. I can't believe how selfish you're being. We're going to be homeless because of you. I read each one carefully. Noticed how every single message was about what I'd done to her. Not one apology for excluding me from the wedding. Not one acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, they'd treated me horribly. Just blame. Endless blame for refusing to keep funding a life I wasn't good enough to be part of. I blocked her number. Blocked his too. Then I ordered pizza. Something I never did because it felt too indulgent. And watched a movie I'd been wanting to see for months. Sat on my couch in my green living room eating pizza straight from the box. Not having to share with anyone or feel guilty about spending money on myself. For the first time in 28 years, I was putting myself first. And it felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. The next 2 weeks were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. My sister kept checking in, asking if I'd heard anything. I hadn't. Part of me wondered if this was it, if we were just done now. 28 years erased because I'd finally said no. I started doing something strange during this time. I started living. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. For the first time in decades, I made decisions based on what I wanted, not what she needed. Started with small things, bought myself new clothes. Actual clothes I liked, not just practical work stuff. A blue sweater that made my eyes look brighter, jeans that actually fit, boots I'd been wanting for months. Went to the mall on a Saturday. Just wandered around with no purpose except enjoying myself. Couldn't remember the last time I'd done that. Probably before she was born, 28 years ago. Also finally went to the dentist. Had 2 cavities that needed filling and a cleaning I'd been putting off for 3 years. The dentist asked why I'd waited so long. I gave some excuse about being busy, but the truth was I'd been funneling every extra dollar to my daughter. My own health had taken a back seat. Actually, it hadn't even been in the car. Started cutting my hours at work too. Told my supervisor I was done with double shifts unless absolutely necessary. She looked shocked. I'd been the reliable one. The one who always said yes to extra hours for 28 years straight. Everything okay? She asked carefully. Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. I just realized I've been killing myself for nothing. She didn't ask for details, but she nodded like she understood. With my free time, I did something I'd always wanted to do, painted my bedroom, changed it from boring beige to a deep purple I'd always loved. My daughter had seen paint samples years ago and said it was too dark, too dramatic. So I'd gone with beige. Safe, boring beige that she approved of. Now I sat in my purple bedroom reading books I'd bought for myself, drinking coffee I'd made the way I liked it, and felt this unfamiliar sensation. Contentment. Actual contentment. My sister came over one Sunday with takeout. saw the bedroom, and raised her eyebrows. When did you do this? Last week. It's gorgeous. Very you. Then more carefully, heard from her? No, nothing. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. I feel like I spent 28 years being her mother and forgot to be a person. And now I'm just being a person again. She hugged me. I'm proud of you. What you did? Standing up for yourself. That took real courage. Or I'm a terrible mother who abandoned her daughter when she needed me, I said, voicing the fear that woke me up at 3 a.m. sometimes. She's 28 years old. Married, employed. She doesn't need you. She just wants your money. My sister's voice was firm. And when you stopped providing it, you stopped existing to her. That tells you everything you need to know. It was true. My daughter hadn't called to ask how I was doing, hadn't called to genuinely apologize. She'd only reached out when she needed something, and when I couldn't provide it, I became the villain. Started going to a dance class too, beginner ballroom dancing on Thursday nights. I was terrible at it, kept stepping on my partner's feet, but it was fun. The instructor was this energetic woman in her 60s who kept shouting, "Dancing is just controlled falling," and I loved her for it. After class one night, a few of us went to a coffee shop nearby, just sat around talking, laughing, being social. I realized I hadn't had real friends in years. I'd had coworkers I was friendly with, sure, but actual friends? People I did things with outside of work? That had died when my daughter was born, and I'd decided she was my entire world. One of the women, her name was Ruth, recently divorced, asked what I did for fun. This, I said, gesturing to the coffee shop, our group. This is the most fun I've had in years. She laughed like I was joking, but when she saw my face, her expression softened. Honey, we need to get you out more. And they did. Started inviting me to things, movie nights, dinners, a book club that met twice a month. I said yes to everything. This whole world opening up that I'd been closed off from for decades. My daughter had no idea any of this was happening. Had no idea I was building a life that didn't revolve around her. And honestly, that felt good. It felt really, really good. 3 weeks after the confrontation, my sister called me at work. I saw them today, at the grocery store. Okay, I said, bracing myself. They looked rough. She looked exhausted, and they were arguing in the checkout line. Nothing violent. Just bickering about money, I think. He kept saying something about bills. I felt something, but it wasn't the desperate need to fix everything that would have consumed me a month ago. It was more like distant concern, the way you'd feel hearing about a stranger's problems. Did she see you? Yeah. We made eye contact and she looked away immediately. Didn't come over. Probably embarrassed, I said. Probably. My sister paused. Their situation must be bad if they're fighting in public like that. She was fishing, trying to see if I'd rush in to save the day. But I didn't take the bait. That's between them. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. I know this is hard. It was hard. Some days I woke up with this ache in my chest, this need to call her and fix things. But then I'd remember her calling me pathetic. Remember finding out about the wedding through social media. Remember 28 years of sacrificing everything while she took and never once asked if I was okay. At work, one of the older nurses, a woman named Ruth who'd been there even longer than me, pulled me aside during lunch. You seem different lately. In a good way. Different how? Lighter. Like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore. She stirred her coffee. My daughter was like yours once. Needed me for everything. Took everything. Gave nothing back. I spent years destroying myself trying to make her happy. What changed? I stopped. Just like you're doing now. And you know what happened? She fell on her face a few times, figured out how to handle her own life, and now we actually have a relationship. A real one. How long did that take? About 2 years before she came back around. Ruth smiled. But it was worth the wait. Now she calls to ask about my life, not just when she needs something. 2 years? Could I handle 2 years of this silence? This not knowing? That weekend, I did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. Called a therapist. Made an appointment. The earliest they had was 3 weeks out, which actually felt right. Gave me time to prepare. In the meantime, I kept building my new life. The dance class became a regular thing. I was getting better, actually learning the steps instead of just stumbling through them. Started going to a painting class too, watercolors on Wednesday evenings. I was terrible at it, but it didn't matter. The instructor, a patient man in his 50s, said the point wasn't perfection, but expression. Let yourself make mistakes, he said when I got frustrated with a painting that looked nothing like the reference photo. That's where the interesting stuff happens. One Thursday after dance class, the group invited me to dinner. Just a casual thing at a restaurant nearby. I almost said no, old habit, always rushing home like someone was waiting for me there. But I said yes instead. We sat around this table for 3 hours, just talking, laughing, sharing stories. One woman talked about her divorce, another about her kids moving out of state. Everyone had their own complicated lives, their own struggles, and nobody was judging anyone. We were just people being real with each other. Walking to my car afterward, I realized I was smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time I'd smiled like this? My phone rang as I unlocked my car. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this her? A woman's voice. Older, refined, cold as ice. Who is this? I'm his mother. We need to talk about what you're doing to my son and your daughter. His mother. The sophisticated family I wasn't good enough to meet. I sat in my car, engine off, and listened. I'm not doing anything to anyone, I said calmly. You withdrew your support out of spite. They're struggling because of you. Living in a terrible place, fighting constantly, their marriage is falling apart. You're destroying them. Their marriage is 3 months old. If it's already falling apart, that has nothing to do with me. You're her mother. You're supposed to support her unconditionally. I did support her. For 28 years. Unconditionally. And when I asked for one thing, to be included in her wedding, she told me I was too pathetic and embarrassing. So no, I'm done supporting unconditionally. She made a mistake. She took $8,000 from me and then excluded me from the event that money paid for because your son has standards. I let that sink in. If your son's family is so good and sophisticated, you can support them. You can co-sign their lease. You can pay their bills. Silence. Then, we've already given them... She stopped herself. But I'd heard enough. They'd given them something. Money, probably. And it wasn't enough. If your family already helped them and they're still struggling, maybe your son should get a better job, I said. Instead of expecting working-class mothers he's ashamed of to fund his lifestyle. How dare you? I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger. The absolute nerve of this woman to call me and demand I bankroll her son's life, while also accepting that he thought I wasn't good enough to attend the wedding. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the conversation. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from my daughter's number. I'd unblocked it at some point without really thinking about it. I can't believe you spoke to his mother like that. She was trying to help us, and you were completely disrespectful. What is wrong with you? I stared at that message for a long time. What is wrong with you? Not, I'm sorry she called you. Not, I wish this situation was different. Just blame. Always blame. I typed back, I'm done being disrespected by your husband's family while you take my money. When you're ready to treat me like a human being instead of an ATM, we can talk. Sent it before I could second-guess myself. She didn't respond immediately. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, waiting. The response came an hour later. You're going to regret this. We're family. No, I typed back. Family doesn't exclude each other from weddings and then demand money. You made your choice. This time I blocked her number again. For real this time. Blocked him too. Then I did something I probably should have done weeks ago. Changed my locks. It was paranoid maybe, but after that confrontation at my door, and now his mother calling, I didn't trust them not to show up when I wasn't home. Called a locksmith first thing in the morning. Cost me $200, but it was worth it for the peace of mind. My first therapy appointment was on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd taken a half day off work, which was something I never did. The therapist was a woman in her early 40s named Dr. Hayes. Calm, professional, immediately put me at ease. Tell me why you're here, she said. I told her everything. The abandonment by my ex-husband, the decades of sacrifice, the wedding, the $8,000, the confrontations, my daughter calling me pathetic. All of it came pouring out. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, do you know what codependency is? I had a vague idea. She explained it thoroughly. How I'd made my daughter the center of my identity. How I'd used her needs as an excuse not to build my own life. How I'd created a dynamic where she learned my love meant endless giving without boundaries. You taught her that your needs don't matter, Dr. Hayes said gently, and now you're surprised that she doesn't think they matter. That hit like a freight train, because she was right. Every time I'd worked a double shift instead of taking care of myself. Every time I'd said, "Don't worry about me," when she forgot my birthday. Every time I'd smiled through exhaustion and said, "I'm fine," I was teaching her that I didn't matter, that my pain was irrelevant as long as she was happy. I thought that's what good mothers did, I said. Sacrifice everything. Sacrifice isn't love, she said. Martyrdom isn't love. Love includes boundaries. Love includes teaching your children that other people's needs and feelings matter too, not just theirs. I cried in that session. Not sad crying, something else. Relief, maybe. Or recognition. I was seeing the pattern clearly for the first time. And while it hurt, it also explained everything. Here's what I want you to understand, Dr. Hayes said near the end. Setting boundaries with your daughter isn't abandoning her. It's the most loving thing you can do right now. You're teaching her that actions have consequences, that she can't treat people terribly and expect them to keep supporting her. That's a lesson she desperately needs. Over the next few sessions, we dug deeper, talked about my ex-husband's abandonment and how it had left me desperate to prove I was enough, how I'd transferred all my self-worth into being needed by my daughter, how the wedding wasn't just a betrayal. It was proof that I'd built my entire life on a foundation that never actually existed. You have time, Dr. Hayes said during one session. You're 55, not 95. You can still build a life that's yours. That became my mantra. You have time. And I started believing it. Therapy became my anchor over the next few weeks. Every session peeled back another layer, helped me see patterns I'd been blind to for decades. We talked about how I'd essentially been living through my daughter instead of living my own life. How terrifying it was to suddenly have to figure out who I was as a person, not just as a mother. What do you want? Dr. Hayes asked during one session. Not what you think you should want? Not what would make your daughter happy? What do you actually want for yourself? I sat there for a long moment, realizing I didn't know. Couldn't remember the last time I'd asked myself that question. I don't know, I admitted. Then that's your homework. Start figuring it out. So I did. Started small. What food did I actually like? Turned out I loved spicy food, but I'd always made bland meals because my daughter didn't like spice. What movies did I enjoy? Action movies, which surprised me. I'd always watched romantic comedies because that's what she wanted to watch. Started making a list of things I'd always wanted to do. Travel to the coast, learn to paint better, maybe even date someday, though that felt terrifying. I'd been with my ex-husband since I was 23, and after he left, I'd just never made time for romance. Meanwhile, news about my daughter kept trickling in through my sister and mutual acquaintances. They'd found a cheaper apartment in a worse neighborhood. Were fighting constantly. Their neighbors had complained about the noise multiple times. He was being aggressive and cruel, blaming her for losing my financial support. Do you feel guilty? Dr. Hayes asked when I mentioned this. Sometimes, but mostly I just feel sad. Sad for her, or sad for yourself? For myself, I realized. For all the years I wasted. I could have had a life, friends, hobbies, relationships. Instead, I worked myself to death for someone who ended up thinking I'm pathetic. It's not too late, she reminded me. You're building that life now. And I was. Started going to the coast on weekends. Just day trips at first, driving out early morning and coming back at night. The ocean felt healing somehow. Sat on the beach for hours, reading, watching the waves, just being. Signed up for a better painting class too. More advanced techniques, smaller group. The instructor was impressed with my progress. You're a natural, he said, which made me laugh because I'd spent 55 years not knowing that about myself. The dance class continued. I'd gotten good enough that they asked me to perform in a small showcase they were organizing. I almost said no. The old fear of being seen, of being judged, of not being good enough. But then I thought about my daughter excluding me because I wasn't sophisticated enough, and something in me rebelled. Yes, I told the instructor. I'll do it. Started practicing extra hours, got a dress for the performance, nothing fancy, but it made me feel beautiful. The night of the showcase, my sister came to watch. So did Ruth from work, and a few people from my painting class. People I'd let into my life over these past few months. When I walked onto that little stage and started dancing, I felt something I'd never felt before. Not nervousness or fear of judgment. Just joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Afterward, everyone congratulated me. My sister hugged me tight. You were amazing. When did you get so good? When I started doing things for myself instead of for everyone else, I said. That night, lying in bed, I got a text from an unknown number. Took me a minute to realize it was my daughter. She'd gotten a new number or was texting from someone else's phone. I heard you were dancing in some showcase. Glad you're living your best life while I'm struggling. The bitterness was palpable. Part of me wanted to respond, to defend myself, to explain. But I didn't. I just deleted the message and went to sleep. 3 months after the wedding, my sister told me they'd separated. He'd kicked her out of the apartment during a fight. She was staying with a friend, barely scraping by, devastated. She's going to call you, my sister warned. I know. What are you going to do? I thought about it. About the woman I'd been 3 months ago who would have dropped everything to rescue her. And about the woman I was now, who'd learned the hard way that rescuing someone from their own choices just enabled them to keep making bad ones. I'm going to tell her I love her, but I can't fix this for her. My sister looked at me for a long moment. You've changed. Really changed. I had to. The old version of me was dying inside. And it was true. The old me, the one who lived entirely through her daughter, who had no identity beyond being a mother, who sacrificed everything and got nothing in return, she was gone. And I didn't miss her at all. The call came on a Friday night. I was at home, halfway through a book I'd been enjoying, when my phone rang. Her number, or a new number, I couldn't tell. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Mom. Her voice was wrecked, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Mom, please, I need help. Everything's fallen apart and I don't know what to do. I sat down, gripping the phone. What happened? He kicked me out. Just told me to leave, wouldn't even let me pack all my stuff. I'm staying with a friend, but she says I can only be here another week. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have any money. Mom, please, I need you. I closed my eyes. This was the moment. It was the test of everything I'd learned in therapy, everything I'd been building over the past 3 months. The old me would already be driving over there, would already be offering my spare room, my money, my life. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said carefully. That sounds really difficult. Can I come stay with you? Just for a little while until I figure things out? No. Silence. Then, no? Mom, I'm about to be homeless. How can you say no? You're not homeless, you're staying with a friend, and you're 28 years old with a job. You can figure this out. I can't afford a security deposit and first month's rent on my own. I need help. Then you'll need to find a roommate situation, or a cheaper place, or pick up extra shifts at work. I'm not giving you money and you're not moving in with me. I can't believe this. Her voice shifted from desperate to angry. I'm your daughter and you're just going to let me suffer? I'm not letting you suffer. I'm letting you handle your own life. There's a difference. This is because of the wedding, isn't it? You're still punishing me for that. I took a deep breath. This isn't punishment. This is me finally setting boundaries. For 28 years, I made your problems my problems. I destroyed myself trying to fix everything for you. And you know what I got for it? You called me pathetic, excluded me from your wedding, took $8,000 from me and then told me I wasn't good enough to be there. I apologized for that. No, you didn't. You said you were sorry I was hurt. That's not the same as being sorry for what you did. She was crying harder now. I can't do this alone. I need my mom. You have your mom. I'm right here. But I'm not going to be your ATM or your safety net anymore. You need to figure this out yourself. So that's it? You're just abandoning me? That word again. Abandon. Setting boundaries isn't abandonment. I love you, but I can't save you from the consequences of your choices. I hate you, she said, and hung up. I sat there for a long time, phone in my hand, waiting for the guilt to crush me. It came in waves. What if she really did end up on the streets? What if something terrible happened to her? What if I was making a horrible mistake? I called Dr. Hayes' emergency line, left a message explaining what happened, how I was feeling. She called back within an hour. You did the right thing, she said firmly. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. What if something happens to her? She has a job, she has friends. She's capable of handling this. You've just never let her prove it because you were always there to fix everything. She said she hates me. She's angry that you're not enabling her anymore. That's different from actually hating you. Give her time. Over the next few weeks, the messages continued, sometimes angry, accusing me of being cruel and heartless, sometimes desperate, begging for just a little help, sometimes manipulative, reminding me of good times we'd had, asking if I even loved her anymore. I responded occasionally, but kept my boundaries firm. I love you. I believe you can handle this. I'm not able to provide financial support. You're stronger than you think. She hated every response. Told me I'd changed, that I wasn't the mother she knew. You're right, I typed back once. I'm not. I'm someone who has her own life now. My sister kept me updated on what she could find out. My daughter had found a room to rent in someone's house. It was small and in a rough neighborhood, but it was hers. She was working extra shifts, learning to budget, figuring out how to survive on her own. She's doing it, my sister said during one of our calls. She's actually handling her life. I know, I said. And I felt proud of her, even if she'd hate knowing that. 4 months after the wedding, something unexpected happened. I went on a date. His name was Penn. I'd met him at my painting class about 6 weeks earlier. He was 58, a widower whose wife had died from cancer 3 years ago. We'd been chatting after class for weeks, nothing serious, just friendly conversation about art and life. Then one night, he asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. I almost said no. The guilt tried to surface. How could I date when my daughter was struggling? How could I think about my own happiness when our relationship was broken? But then I remembered Dr. Hayes saying I had time, that I deserved a life, that I was allowed to be happy. Yes, I said. I'd like that. The coffee date turned into dinner the next week, then a movie, then a walk in the park. Penn was kind, patient, genuinely interested in my life. He asked about my work, my hobbies, my thoughts on things. Not what I could do for him, but who I was as a person. Tell me about your family, he said during our third date. I gave him the short version. I have a daughter. We're going through a difficult period right now. I'm learning to set boundaries. He nodded. That's hard. I went through something similar with my youngest son. He was in his 30s, couldn't hold down a job, kept asking for money. My wife wanted to keep helping, but I finally said no. He was furious with us for years. How did you handle that? We stuck to our boundaries. It was hell for about 2 years. He barely spoke to us. But eventually he figured his life out, got a stable job, even apologized. Now we talk every week and it's actually a real relationship. 2 years, I said. Everyone kept saying 2 years. It's worth it, Penn said. The relationship we have now is better than what we had before. Because it's not based on me rescuing him. It's based on mutual respect. I started seeing Penn regularly. Once a week at first, then twice. He met my sister, who approved immediately. Met my friends from dance class and painting. They all said the same thing. I seemed happy, really happy. Around this time, I noticed my daughter's texts had changed. Less frequent, less angry. Sometimes just a "how are you?" with no hidden agenda. I responded carefully, keeping things light but not diving back into the old pattern. Then one evening, she called. Actually called instead of texting. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was different, calmer, more mature somehow. Of course. I've been thinking a lot about the wedding, about how I treated you, about everything, and I need to actually apologize. Not a fake apology, a real one. I sat down. I'm listening. I was so caught up in him, in being the person he wanted me to be, that I completely lost myself. And I let him turn you into this embarrassment, this problem to be hidden, when you were the person who'd sacrificed everything for me. Her voice cracked. I took $8,000 from you and then excluded you because I was ashamed. That's unforgivable, Mom. And I'm so sorry. I felt tears building. It hurt. It still hurts. I know. And I don't expect you to just forgive me or go back to how things were. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, what I did. And I'm sorry. We talked for over an hour. Really talked. I told her about therapy, about learning I'd been codependent, about how her needs had consumed my entire identity. She told me about her marriage falling apart, about realizing her ex-husband was emotionally abusive, about starting therapy herself. I think I was looking for Dad, she said, trying to prove I was good enough that a man wouldn't leave me. And I just found another guy who made me feel worthless. That makes sense, I said gently. I'm sorry I made you pay for his abandonment. You didn't deserve that. It was the most self-aware thing she'd ever said to me. I'm seeing someone, I mentioned toward the end of the conversation. Dating. There was a pause. Then, really? Mom, that's great. I'm really happy for you. She sounded like she meant it. We didn't fix everything in that one conversation, didn't erase months of pain and boundary setting. But it was a start, a real start. The kind built on honesty instead of codependency. 5 months after the wedding, I took my first real vacation in over 20 years. Penn and I drove to the coast for a long weekend, stayed at a little bed and breakfast, walked on the beach, ate at local restaurants, just enjoyed being away from everything. You seem different than when I first met you, Penn said one evening as we watched the sunset from the beach. Different how? More relaxed, more comfortable in your own skin, like you've finally given yourself permission to exist. He was right. I'd spent 55 years being what other people needed. A wife, a mother, a nurse, a caretaker, never just being myself. Now I was learning who that person even was, and it felt like coming up for air after drowning for decades. My relationship with Penn was getting serious. We'd talked about maybe moving in together eventually, though we were taking it slow. He'd met my daughter briefly over coffee, awkward but cordial. He didn't try too hard, which I appreciated. Just treated her like a regular person, not like someone he needed to win over. My daughter was doing better, still working 2 jobs, living in that small room, but handling her life. We talked maybe once a week now. Short calls mostly, checking in. She told me about her therapy sessions, about things she was learning about herself. I told her about my life. Dance class, painting, Penn. It was strange, this new dynamic. We were learning to be 2 separate people who cared about each other, instead of the codependent mess we'd been before. Some days it felt awkward and uncomfortable. Other days it felt right in a way our old relationship never had. She invited me to lunch one Saturday, just the 2 of us. I almost said no, old fears about falling back into patterns, but Dr. Hayes encouraged me to go. You've done the work, she said. You can have lunch with your daughter without losing yourself. So I went. We met at a small cafe downtown. She looked tired but healthier somehow. Less like she was drowning and more like she was treading water. How's work? I asked. Exhausting, but I'm learning a lot. About budgeting, about managing money, about actually being an adult. She smiled ruefully. Things I should have learned years ago if I hadn't been relying on you for everything. You're learning them now. That's what matters. I got approved for my own apartment, she said. Small 1-bedroom, nothing fancy, but it's mine. No roommates, no co-signers. I did it myself. I felt genuinely proud of her. That's wonderful. Thank you for not saving me, she said suddenly. I was so angry at you for months. Thought you were being cruel. But you were right. I needed to learn how to handle my own life. I'm sorry it had to happen that way, I said. But I'm not sorry for setting boundaries. You shouldn't be. I was using you, taking advantage of your love. That wasn't fair. We talked about other things too, about her therapy, my therapy, the wedding and how we'd both handled it terribly in different ways. It wasn't all resolved. Some wounds take years to heal, but we were both trying, actually trying. When we left the cafe, she hugged me. I love you, Mom. I love you too. It felt different than before, less desperate, less suffocating, just genuine. My life had become something I'd never imagined. I was dating a man who respected me, had actual friends who I saw regularly, went to dance classes and painting classes, and actually enjoyed my free time instead of filling it with work. My apartment was decorated the way I wanted it. Deep purple bedroom, green living room, art I'd chosen myself on the walls. I'd cut my hours at work to 4 shifts a week instead of 6. No more double shifts unless absolutely necessary. My supervisor had adjusted, found other nurses to cover the extra hours. The world hadn't ended because I'd stopped being available 24/7. Financially, I was rebuilding. That $8,000 loss had hurt, and I was still paying off the loan, but I was managing. More importantly, I was saving money for things I wanted. A better car, maybe. A real vacation with Penn next year. Things that were for me. The old me wouldn't recognize this life. The woman who worked herself to death, who had no identity beyond being needed, who sacrificed everything and got nothing in return. That woman was gone. And while the journey to get here had been painful, the wedding, the confrontations, the months of silence, I wouldn't change it. Because for the first time in my adult life, I was actually living instead of just existing. It's been 8 months since the wedding that destroyed and rebuilt my life, 8 months since I found out through social media that my daughter had gotten married without me. 8 months since I started the hardest, most necessary journey of my life, learning to be a person instead of just a mother. My relationship with my daughter is still healing. We talk once, maybe twice a week. Short conversations mostly, but real ones. She asks about my life now, actually listens to the answers, tells me about her therapy sessions and the things she's learning about herself. About codependency and people-pleasing and how she'd been repeating patterns from watching me. I didn't know any other way to be, she told me recently. You were so self-sacrificing that I thought that's what love looked like. Just endless giving without boundaries. And then I found a man who took advantage of that, just like I'd taken advantage of you. It was hard to hear, but it was true. We'd both been trapped in unhealthy patterns, passing damage down like an inheritance neither of us wanted. She's doing well now. Still working 2 jobs but in her own apartment, managing her own bills, building her own life. We had dinner last week. She cooked for me in her tiny kitchen, proud of this simple meal she'd made herself. The apartment was small but clean and decorated with things she'd chosen. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Earned through her own effort. I never understood how hard you worked, she said while we ate. Not until I had to do it myself. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate it. I'm sorry I called you pathetic when you were the strongest person I knew. I cried. She cried. We were finally being honest with each other. As for me, my life is unrecognizable from 8 months ago. Penn and I are getting serious. We're talking about moving in together next year, taking things slow but steady. He makes me laugh, makes me feel valued and seen. He's met my friends, fits into my life without trying to control it. I'm still taking dance classes. Actually performed in another showcase last month and didn't feel terrified the whole time. Just felt joy. Penn was in the audience cheering embarrassingly loud. My daughter came too, brought flowers, hugged me afterward, and told me she was proud of me. The painting classes continue. I've gotten good enough that I've sold a few pieces at a local art fair. Nothing that'll make me rich, but seeing someone choose my art, pay money for something I created, felt incredible. I work 4 shifts a week now. No double shifts. No weekend caretaker jobs. My coworkers have adjusted. The hospital hasn't collapsed because I'm not there constantly. Turns out I wasn't as indispensable as I thought, which was actually a relief. My apartment is exactly how I want it. Deep purple bedroom, green living room, art on the walls that I chose because I liked it, not because someone else approved. It's small, but it's mine. My sanctuary. Financially, I'm still paying off that pension loan, still recovering from the $8,000 loss. But I'm managing. Saving money for the first time in my life for things I want, not things someone else needs. Penn and I are planning a trip next spring. Real vacation, 2 full weeks, somewhere warm with beaches. My sister says I look 10 years younger than I did 8 months ago. You're glowing, she told me last week. Like you finally remembered you're allowed to be happy. She's right. I'd forgotten that somewhere along the way. Forgotten that my happiness mattered. That my needs were valid. That I was allowed to exist as more than just a support system for someone else. Do I regret how everything happened? The wedding still hurts when I think about it. $8,000 I'll never get back. Months of pain and confusion and anger. But I don't regret setting boundaries. Don't regret finally choosing myself. Because here's what I learned. You can love someone and still have boundaries. You can be a good mother without destroying yourself. Sacrifice isn't love. It's just sacrifice. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone handle their own life. Even when they're struggling. Even when you want desperately to fix everything. I'm 55 years old. I spent 28 years being a mother and forgot to be anything else. For the first time in decades, I'm living my own life. Not defined by what I can give or who needs me. Just a woman with hobbies and friends and a partner who values her. A woman who finally understands that she's enough. Just as she is. And that's not the ending I expected when this whole nightmare started 8 months ago. But it's the ending I needed.